So I looked up some reviews for this movie on Rotten Tomatoes just to see what some of the general audience thought, and one person said, "This is not the same quality as the first Suicide Squad." And he gave it 1 star. He's got the spirit, but... Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Today's movie in the middle is The Suicide Squad. The Suicide Squad is the sequel/soft reboot by James Gunn of 2016's Suicide Squad, which was a flop, and now it's come back to try to do it again in a much better light, and it stars a lot of people, so I'm just gonna read them off. Idris Elba, Margot Robbie, John Cena, Sylvester Stallone, David Dastmalchian, Daniela, Melchior, Pete Davidson, Michael Rooker, Joel Kinnaman, Courtney, Sean Gunn, Taika Waititi with Peter Capaldi and Viola Davis. I feel like I need my own post-credit scene after that one. This movie is fucking awesome. I have so many highs with this, so I'm just gonna get right into them. Now, the overarching high here is that James Gunn did direct it, and he is the one who did Guardians of the Galaxy Volumes 1 and 2, so obviously it was going to be really good because he was going to bring that wholesomeness yet gruesomeness to it, and he does. Firstly, this movie is hilarious. It's so much funnier than the first one, mostly because the first one wasn't meant to be funny, but this one has so much good humor in it between the characters themselves, so many of the lines and the competitions they have between one another. Just the dialogue is hilarious. It is basically, I don't want to say a Marvel script, but there's a lot of that funny quipping in it, but in a darker way. The action as well is incredible. There's so many good scenes in this, and they all actually have like really good purpose for the story. They're so cool. The superpowers that are actually used in this movie are not only really cool, but really inventive. Some of them are kind of your regular superpowers, a lot of guns and everything. John Cena specifically and Idris Elba's Bloodsport both have like, actually it's kind of a running joke that they sort of have the same power, so they have like a competition between who can be better because they're just really strong. Everything they have is a weapon, things like that. But then you have some really interesting ones like Polka Dot Man, who does exactly as it sounds. He throws a bunch of polka dots at people and they explode, and it's awesome. There are just so many really cool powers used in this one, and I loved it. The thing about the action in this movie is that it is just over the top gory, and I was okay with it. It was so cool because they just did not hold back. There are things that you see that will never, you won't forget them. I'll just say that. But the biggest thing generally that this movie has that the first one lacked a little bit of, they tried to do it in the first one, but they didn't do it as well as this one, was that bond, that group dynamic. You know, in the first one they still have that. They have their, you know, we all don't like each other, but then we kind of grow to like each other, and you know, they did a mostly good job of that. I will say that for Suicide Squad. They did a good job of, like, you know, they all kind of start to work together and like each other. But in this one, they really do it a lot more. And I will say, there is a scene that I thought was going to end up being like just a whole scene leading up to like a joke or something, but it wasn't. It was serious, and you know, it seemed maybe a little bit on the nose, but it really was good for especially the end when certain characters have to make certain decisions, and you know, that kind of bond that they all have with each other really made that emotional. So I really liked that they had that bond with each other. They had that chemistry and that quipping. It was even better in this one. And again, that comes from the fact that James Gunn directed this, and we see those things in Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and 2. A lot of people aren't super happy that it is very Guardians of the Galaxy. The thing is, I think they did a good job of balancing it, because while Suicide Squad in 2016 was a lot darker tonally, it just wasn't as entertaining, and there were a lot of other mistakes with it, but it did have that darkness to it. This one is a little bit lighter in tone, and that definitely is what makes it a more entertaining movie, what makes it a better movie. But they still try to keep that darkness of the DC universe and the DC characters with it, I think. You know, it's weird. They have a good balance with it. I can see where people would be like, no, I want the dark tone of Suicide Squad, not the Guardians of the Galaxy tone of, you know, Marvel. But at a certain point, obviously, DC just, it wasn't working how they were doing it. So you have to switch it up a little bit to make it actually work. Just going quickly into some of the characters, Idris Elba, he always plays sort of a stick in the mud, except for like maybe one or two other movies. Cats. In this movie, he is so funny. He is like actually a person. He has emotions and feelings. He has fears. He works together really well with all of the group members. He was really funny, and this is probably my favorite role I've ever seen him in. Margot Robbie does a really good job always as well. I've always found her Harley Quinn and Harley Quinn in general to be really fucking annoying. But in this one, it's better because we've gotten to see her growth between Suicide Squad and then Birds of Prey, and now being her own person and making her own decisions. And so that was really good. It not only was really great for her character and being able to, see her on screen doing awesome things that I wanted to see out of Harley, but it actually gives some meaning to the first Suicide Squad because it shows her journey from where she was to where she is now. So I thought that was really great. Also, I've barely actually seen this man in a lot of movies, surprisingly enough, but John Cena was excellent in this movie. I thoroughly thought he was going to be some sort of like stupid character, some weird superhero that comes out and he's all quirky and has his own doofus superpowers and everything, but he's actually a really serious character, and he takes his powers seriously, and he was awesome. And so many of the other characters, I could go into all of them, but they were so great, had their own great dynamics and powers. I just really loved this group. I do have two middle elements, one of them being about the characters, and that is that a lot of them don't get enough attention, but it is for a very specific reason. So it's like, it sucks, but I get it. The other middle element that I have is that the villain in this, there's actually a few of them, but one of them is still outrageous. One of the problems with the first Suicide Squad is that you get a bunch of these villains who are in jail, who become sort of the superheroes, but a lot of them, some of them have big powers, and then some of them are just have weapons and stuff. So you get these kind of run-of-the-mill villains, for the most part, to fight a supernatural alien creature. And it just didn't make sense. Why wouldn't you get Superman for that? For this one, it makes more sense because while the one villain is outrageous, it is a byproduct of the mission that they were actually given, which was grounded in more realistic human villains and human issues and conflicts. So that is why I think it works this time. While it is ridiculous still, it's because it starts out as a regular military mission, so it works in that way. I don't necessarily have a low because of those two things being like, while they're maybe a little annoying or something, I understand why. Like, once you see the movie, you'll understand what I mean in terms of some things were necessary. So I don't necessarily have a low for this movie. There were some things that maybe bugged me. If I do have like a nitpick, it might be that the plot was a little hard to follow here and there. But even then, they label chapters out for you. So honestly, I don't really think I have a low with this movie. Overall, The Suicide Squad is a vastly better movie than its predecessor. It is awesome. It is so much fun. It is really entertaining, really gruesome, really funny. It has what we wanted from the group in the first one while still keeping a lot of the darkness of the first one. I still will understand if people do want that tonal darkness from the DCEU from that first one in this, but again, even if it crosses over into being a little too Marvel-y, I have to judge it based off just this movie itself, because again, obviously the DCEU as it was going wasn't necessarily working. They had to bring in a Marvel director to make the DC universe work. I'm going to give The Suicide Squad a 3.5 out of 4. Let me know what you guys think of The Suicide Squad. I know it's gotten some mixed reviews from people, but mostly it's been really well received. I know it's been kind of a box office flop, but I'm pretty sure that's just because of COVID and people aren't still going to the theater. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Make sure to like and subscribe as always. And as always, keep your hopes high, your stress low, and movies right in the middle. I'll see you guys later. Also, here's my post-credit scene. The Spider-Man No Way Home trailer just dropped. Go watch it. It's so cool. Also, I did a very quick reaction spontaneously when I found out that it came out on my Instagram. So please go watch that as well. Oh, it's I'm very excited.